Imaging finding a rare coin so rare it could pay off your house today. We're diving into 10 of the most valuable US coins ever found. Real coins worth hundreds and even millions of dollars or more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next rare find. Let's start this.
Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old envelope. It looks ordinary. It looks forgotten. And yet, if that coin could talk, it would whisper a number that could change someone's life forever. $473,000. Not from the stock market. Not from crypto. Not from a risky investment. But from a single Lincoln wheat penny struck in 1953 at the Denver Mint. Before you scroll away or assume this is just another coin video, ask yourself one honest question: what if the most valuable thing you own isn't what you think it is? And what if ignoring it costs you a fortune? Act 1 begins in post-war America. It's 1953. The country is rebuilding, optimism is high, and millions of wheat pennies are rolling off mint presses every single day. No one is paying attention to small mistakes. No one is inspecting mint marks under magnification. And that's exactly when history slips through unnoticed. The Denver Mint, marked by a simple D beneath Lincoln's date, produced pennies that year that appeared normal to the untrained eye. But a tiny group of those coins were not normal at all. They were born from mechanical imperfections, misaligned dies, striking errors, and anomalies that were never meant to leave the mint. And yet they did. Quietly. Invisibly. Like a winning lottery ticket handed out by accident. Now here's where the story tightens, and lean in for this part. Coin errors are not damage. They are not wear. They are mint-made anomalies, and that difference is everything. A genuine 1953 D wheat penny error, authenticated and preserved, exists in a category of scarcity that money simply cannot recreate. You can print dollars. You cannot recreate a mint error from 1953. That era is sealed. Finished. Gone. And collectors know it. Serious collectors don't chase hype. They chase rarity. And this penny has it in absolute silence. And yes, documented high-end examples tied to rare error varieties have been associated with market values approaching $473,000 when condition, error type, and provenance align. That number isn't magic. It's demand colliding with scarcity at full speed. Act 2 is where urgency enters the room. Because here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. Coins like this are not found by people who wait until later. They are found by people who act before the crowd wakes up. The biggest financial regret in collectibles is not selling too early. It's discovering too late. Every year, estates are liquidated. Every year, jars are dumped into banks. Every year, rare coins are lost forever because someone assumed it's probably nothing. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable but very important. When was the last time you actually looked at your old coins, really looked? Not glanced. Not guessed. Looked. And just to reset your attention for a second, because I know what some of you are thinking, no, this is not about digging through couch cushions like a cartoon character. This is about understanding leverage. One verified coin can outperform decades of traditional saving. That's not fantasy. That's how the rare coin market has worked for generations. Wealthy collectors don't buy coins because they're shiny. They buy them because they are finite assets with documented historical demand. And the 1953 D wheat penny error sits squarely in that world. It is not common. It is not replaceable. And it is not getting cheaper as more collectors enter the market. Here's where fear and excitement meet, and this is intentional. Fear of loss is stronger than the desire for gain. The fear is this: someone else discovers the value of what you already own before you do. The excitement is realizing that you may already be holding a financial lever you never planned for. The kind that doesn't require quitting your job or risking your retirement. Just awareness, action, and verification. And yes, authentication matters. The market only rewards what it can trust. But once verified, the market does something fascinating. It competes. Quietly. Aggressively. With serious money, Act 3 is about power, control, and choice. This is where the story stops being about a coin and starts being about you. Because the people who build wealth through rare assets all share one trait. They pay attention when others don't. They ask questions before the crowd. They move while opportunity is still uncomfortable. And the 1953 wheat penny era represents that exact moment in time right now. Demand for rare U.S. coinage continues to rise. Supply will never increase. And high-grade error coins from the mid-20th century are being absorbed into long-term collections at a pace that should make anyone with old coins pause. Let's add a moment of humor to keep this grounded. Imagine telling your younger self that a penny would one day be worth more than a luxury car, a down payment on a house, or years of salary. You'd laugh. And yet, here we are. Reality has a funny way of rewarding patience and curiosity. And punishing indifference. The market doesn't announce its final call with a siren. It whispers. And those whispers sound a lot like this video. So here's the final connection, and stay with me to the end. Wealth is not always about what you earn. Sometimes it's about what you recognize. The 1953 wheat penny error is not a get-rich-quick fantasy. It is a documented example of how overlooked history can transform into modern financial power. If you own old coins, especially wheat pennies, the smartest move is not guessing, selling blindly, or ignoring them. The smartest move is understanding exactly what you have before the market fully prices it in. Imagine holding something so ordinary that you've ignored it your entire life, something that may have slipped through your fingers 100 times, and yet today, collectors are willing to pay up to $337,000 for it. Not a painting. Not a gold bar. A single copper coin. Yes, a 1940 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear: the next life-changing coin discovery won't happen in a museum, a vault, or a billionaire's collection. It will happen in someone's drawer, jar, or inherited box, possibly yours. The question is not whether rare coins still exist, the question is whether you recognize one before it's too late. Now let's rewind to the year 1940. America was standing on the edge of global conflict. The economy was rebuilding, factories were roaring back to life, and copper pennies rolled off the presses at staggering speed. No fanfare. No headlines. Just millions of coins quietly entering circulation. And yet, hidden among them were mistakes, tiny deviations invisible to the untrained eye, errors that would later transform these humble pennies into some of the most aggressively pursued collectibles in American numismatic history. And here's where things get interesting, because the most valuable versions didn't come from a flashy mint or a special release. They came from Philadelphia. Coins with no mint mark at all. Ordinary on the surface. Extraordinary beneath. Let's pause for a second, because this is usually where people tune out and think, sure, another coin story. But stay with me. Because this isn't about history. This is about missed opportunity. Every serious collector knows that the greatest coin fortunes were built not on gold rushes, but on errors. Double dies. Off-center strikes. Wrong planchets. Weak strikes. Metal flow mistakes. The kinds of errors that slipped past quality control during mass production when speed mattered more than perfection. And the 1940 wheat penny was struck during one of the busiest minting periods in U.S. history. In other words, the perfect storm for valuable mistakes. Here's the part that should make you sit up straight. Verified error examples of the 1940 no-mint Mark wheat penny, preserved in exceptional condition, have reached values as high as $337,000 in the modern collector market. Let that number sink in. That's not someday money. That's not theory. That's recorded, competitive auction money driven by demand, not hype. And the demand isn't slowing down. In fact, it's accelerating as older collections surface, younger buyers enter the market, and high-net-worth investors shift toward tangible assets that can't be printed, inflated, or digitally erased. Now here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest with yourself for a moment. How many pennies have you thrown into a jar without a second glance? How many have been spent at a gas station or dropped into a charity box? If pennies had feelings, they'd be filing lawsuits by now. But humor aside, this casual attitude is exactly why fortunes are still being missed. Most people don't lose money because they don't have it. They lose it because they didn't recognize its value when it was quietly sitting in their hand. Act 2 begins where reality sets in. Because once you understand rarity, condition, and error classification, the coin market stops being a hobby and starts looking like a high-stakes financial ecosystem. Collectors aren't guessing. They're competing. Auction houses aren't gambling. They're tracking demand curves. And the 1940 no-mint mark wheat penny occupies a very specific and powerful position, old enough to be historically significant, common enough to be overlooked, and rare enough in error condition to ignite bidding wars. This is why prices don't drift upward slowly. They jump. And when they jump, they don't send polite invitations. There is also fear in this market, and it's real. Fear of selling too late. Fear of underpricing. Fear of discovering that the coin you casually gave away was the one that could have changed everything. The harsh reality is that once a rare error penny is authenticated and locked into a private collection, it often disappears for decades. Supply tightens. Demand grows. Prices climb. That's not emotion, that's market physics. And right now, the pressure is building. By Act 3, the story is no longer about a penny. It's about legacy. About the quiet power of knowledge. About turning overlooked objects into leverage. Wealthy collectors didn't become wealthy because they chased trends, they learned how to recognize value before the crowd arrived. And the individuals who succeed in rare coins today are not gamblers. They are disciplined, informed, and decisive. They know that the greatest assets are often the ones nobody is paying attention to. So here's the final thought, and it's an urgent one. Somewhere in America, a 1940 no-mint mark wheat penny with a rare mint error is still hiding. It hasn't been graded. It hasn't been auctioned. It hasn't been celebrated. And whoever finds it won't need luck, they'll need awareness. Because the difference between a penny and a six-figure asset is not metal, it's understanding. Imagine holding something so small, so ordinary, that you've ignored it your entire life, yet today, it could quietly be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not a painting. Not gold bars. Not a luxury watch. A single penny. Yes, 1 cent. And if that sentence made you pause for just a second, good. Because history has a strange habit of hiding fortune in plain sight, and the 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny is one of the most powerful examples of that truth. Before you dismiss this as another coin story, let me ask you something unsettling. What if the most valuable object you'll ever own already passed through your hands, and you never even noticed? In 1941, America stood on the edge of history. The nation was tense, uncertain, and unknowingly months away from entering World War II. Factories were humming, steel was precious, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins not for collectors, but for commerce. Pennies were struck by the millions, spent without thought, dropped in pockets, forgotten under couch cushions. And among them were Lincoln wheat pennies struck in Philadelphia, carrying no mint mark at all. At the time, that meant absolutely nothing. Zero. No prestige. No attention. Just another penny. And that's what makes this story dangerous, because the most valuable things often begin as the most ignored. Now here's where the tension begins. Hidden among those 1941 pennies were rare minting errors, mistakes never meant to leave the mint. Errors so subtle that even seasoned collectors missed them for decades. Wrong planchets, off-metal strikes, doubled dies, and transitional anomalies connected to wartime metal experimentation. Coins that slipped through quality control during one of the most chaotic periods in US history. And today, those same pennies, the ones people once flicked into tip jars, are now being whispered about in elite collector circles with valuations reaching as high as $475,000 for verified, high-grade examples. Let that sink in. A penny worth nearly $500,000. Suddenly, that jar of old coins doesn't seem so boring, does it? Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear: wealth doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't knock. It doesn't sparkle. Sometimes it disguises itself as rust, dirt, and age. And that's where fear creeps in. Fear that you may have spent one. Fear that you may still have one and don't know it. Fear that someone else is about to discover what you're overlooking. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you really looked at an old penny? Not glanced. Looked. Because right now, collectors, investors, and high-net-worth buyers are aggressively hunting for authenticated 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny errors, and supply is painfully limited. And let's interrupt the tension for a moment. Quick question. If someone offered you $475,000 for something sitting in your desk drawer, would you still call it junk? Exactly. Humor aside, this is where excitement replaces fear. Because this isn't about luck, it's about awareness. The collectors who profit are not smarter, they're simply paying attention. These coins are in high demand, driven by historical significance, rarity, and the psychological magnetism of wartime America. The 1941 penny represents the calm before the storm, the final breath before global conflict reshaped the world, and collectors will pay enormous money to own a physical piece of that moment. The market doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards action. Auction houses, private buyers, and investment groups are actively competing for verified examples. And here's the urgency: once these coins are locked into long-term collections, they vanish from the open market for decades. Prices don't drift down. They climb. Quietly. Relentlessly. The real danger is waiting too long, assuming you'll check someday, while someone else cashes in today. History doesn't repeat opportunities often, but when it does, it doesn't wait. Now imagine this. You discover an old wheat penny. You notice the date, 1941. No mint mark. Something feels different. You verify it. Authenticate it. And suddenly, the conversation changes. This is no longer about coins. This is about control. About turning forgotten history into modern wealth. About stepping into a room where serious money moves quietly, confidently, and decisively. The kind of wealth that doesn't shout, but lasts. The kind that changes lifestyles, not just bank balances. This is why the smartest collectors don't sell out of desperation, they sell from position. They understand that rarity plus demand equals leverage. And right now, the 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny error sits squarely in that position. Highly demanded. Fiercely pursued. Historically irreplaceable. This isn't a fantasy. It's happening in real time, in the US market, among people who once thought exactly what you might be thinking now: it's just a penny. So here's the final thought, and don't rush past it. Wealth often rewards those who respect history enough to examine it closely. If you own old coins, especially wheat pennies, the question is no longer if they matter. The question is whether you'll act before someone else does. Because somewhere, right now, a single 1941 penny is rewriting someone's financial future. And there's no rule that says it can't be yours. Welcome to the hidden world of rare American coinage, where history, mistakes, and timing quietly turn cents into fortunes. Today's story is about the 1948 wheat penny with no mint mark, a coin born in post-war America, overlooked for decades, and now hunted aggressively by elite collectors willing to pay life-changing money. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the reality of high-end numismatics in today's market. And if you are watching this, it means you are already closer to opportunity than most people will ever be. Let's rewind to 1948. America was rebuilding, factories were roaring back to life, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln wheat pennies for everyday use. These coins were never meant to be special. They were meant to be spent. Coffee. Newspapers. Bus fare. Yet hidden among the millions were a few extraordinary survivors, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, carrying no mint mark, and exhibiting rare minting anomalies that would later separate them from all the rest. No one noticed at the time. Why would they? It was just a penny. And that's exactly how history hides its greatest opportunities, in plain sight. Now here's where the story shifts. Decades later, as serious collectors began studying post-war coinage, something remarkable surfaced. Certain 1948 no-mint mark wheat pennies showed extremely rare characteristics, exceptional strike quality, specific die errors, and preservation levels so high they bordered on impossible. Coins like these don't just appear. They survive against odds. They escape circulation. They avoid cleaning, damage, and wear. And when they do surface, the market doesn't whisper, it reacts. Let me ask you something, just for fun. If someone offered you a penny for $500,000, would you laugh, or would you start checking your change jar tonight? Exactly. That reaction you just had. That's the moment awareness replaces ignorance. And awareness is expensive in this market. Today, top-tier examples of the 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny, particularly those tied to documented mint errors and certified at elite grades, have reached reported market values approaching $473,000. That number isn't emotional. It's not hopeful. It's based on collector demand, auction history, and a shrinking supply. Because here's the hard truth most people don't want to hear: no more of these coins are being made. Ever. And every year, more collectors enter the market with deeper pockets and more urgency. This is where fear quietly enters the room. Not panic. Not stress. But the fear of missing what others recognize. Because while the average person sees a penny, experienced buyers see leverage, legacy, and liquid wealth. Coins like this are portable. Private. Timeless. They don't depend on stock market hours or bank approvals. They are wealth you can hold in your hand. And when the right coin meets the right buyer, the transaction can change an entire family's financial story. But let's pause for a second. Quick pattern interrupt. Be honest. How many times have you ignored pennies because they slow you down at the checkout line? Funny how the smallest coin causes the biggest inconvenience, and sometimes hides the biggest reward. Irony loves collectibles. Back to the story. The reason the 1948 wheat penny no mint mark has become so desirable isn't just rarity. It's symbolism. It represents post-war optimism. American resilience. The Lincoln design itself carries emotional weight for collectors who value history as much as profit. When a coin combines historical importance, documented scarcity, and visible mint anomalies, demand doesn't fade, it accelerates. And that's exactly what we're seeing now, that we are living in a time when tangible assets are being rediscovered. People are moving away from uncertainty and toward items with proven long-term value. Rare coins sit at the intersection of art, history, and finance. And the smart money knows this. High-net-worth collectors are not asking if rare coins matter anymore. They are asking how fast they can acquire them before prices move again. Here's the urgency most people miss. The market doesn't announce its next jump. It simply moves. One auction result resets expectations. One private sale redefines value. And suddenly yesterday's price looks like a bargain. The 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny has already crossed that threshold. It is no longer a maybe someday coin. It is a who owns it now coin, and ownership changes everything. Because when you own a coin in high demand, you control the conversation. You don't chase buyers. Buyers chase provenance, condition, and certification. That's how serious money behaves. Quietly. Confidently. Decisively.so. If you have old pennies, inherited collections, forgotten boxes, or coins that have never been professionally evaluated, understand this: ignoring them is a decision. Spending them is a decision. And evaluating them could be the most profitable decision you've ever made. Wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits patiently to be recognized. This is not about luck. It's about awareness meeting action. The people who profit in rare coins aren't gamblers. They are observers who act before the crowd. They understand that history rewards those who preserve it. And the 1948 wheat penny with no mint mark is no longer just history. It is a symbol of what happens when ordinary objects collide with extraordinary demand. So tonight, when you see a penny, don't rush past it. Look twice. Because the next life-changing opportunity might not look like wealth at all. It might look like 1 cent. It doesn't scream luxury. It doesn't look powerful. And yet, it has the potential to be worth more than most people earn in several years. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, 1 cent, has sold for an astonishing $377,000, and that many people unknowingly owned one just like it before spending it on coffee? Stay with me, because the coin we're talking about today is the 1950 Lincoln wheat penny, one of the most talked about, hunted, and demanded coins in American numismatic history. And by the end of this video, you may never look at your spare change the same way again. This story begins in post-war America. The year is 1950. The country is rebuilding, optimism is rising, and the U.S. Mint is quietly producing millions of pennies in Denver, marked with a small D beneath Lincoln's date. No one at the time thought these coins were special. They were pocket change. Grocery money. Candy for kids. But history has a strange habit of hiding treasure in plain sight. The 1950 wheat penny would later become one of the most searched and scrutinized coins in the world, not because it was flashy, but because scarcity, condition, and rare minting errors turned it into a financial legend. Here's where excitement kicks in. While millions were minted, very few survived in pristine condition, and even fewer were struck with specific mint errors that collectors obsess over today. Coins with sharp strikes, blazing red color, and untouched surfaces have reached jaw-dropping prices at major auctions. In fact, one elite example shocked the collecting world when it achieved a market value approaching $377,000, proving once again that the smallest assets can produce life-changing outcomes. And before you dismiss this as collector luck, ask yourself this: how many coins have passed through your hands without a second glance? Now let's pause for a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest, if someone offered you a penny and told you it might be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you laugh, or would your heart skip just a little? Exactly. That moment of disbelief is where opportunity hides. Most people miss wealth not because it doesn't exist, but because it doesn't look impressive at first glance. As demand exploded, the 1950 wheat penny became a symbol of quiet power. High-grade examples with original mint luster are hunted aggressively by collectors, investors, and dealers who understand one critical truth: rarity plus condition equals serious money. Add a mint error, such as repunched mint marks, die cracks, off-center strikes, or double details, and suddenly you're no longer talking about a penny. You're talking about an asset that can outperform stocks, sit outside traditional markets, and attract buyers willing to pay 6 figures without hesitation, and this is where urgency enters the story. The supply is fixed forever. No more 1950 wheat pennies will ever be made. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or destroyed. Meanwhile, demand keeps rising as new collectors enter the market, wealth shifts generations, and tangible assets become more desirable than digital promises. This is why serious buyers move fast. When a top-tier example appears, it doesn't sit for long. It disappears into private collections, vaults, and long-term investment portfolios. Now let me ask you something that might feel uncomfortable, but powerful. What if you already owned one? What if it's sitting in an inherited collection, a forgotten roll, or an old coffee can in the garage? Fear enters here, not panic, but awareness. Fear of missing out. Fear of unknowingly letting generational wealth slip through your fingers. Because thousands of people have already spent rare coins simply because they didn't know what to look for, yet this story is not about fear alone. It's about control. Knowledge flips the script. The moment you understand what makes a 1950 wheat penny valuable, its mint mark, its strike quality, its color, its errors, you move from spectator to participant. From spender to seller. From curious to empowered. This is how everyday Americans quietly step into a wealthier lifestyle, not through luck, but through awareness and action, and let's add a little humor here, because it matters. Imagine explaining to your friends that your lifestyle upgrade started with a penny. Not crypto. Not real estate. Not a lottery ticket. Just a coin someone once used to buy gum. That's not just funny, it's powerful. Because it proves that wealth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. As we move into the final act of this story, the message becomes crystal clear. The 1950 wheat penny is not just a coin. It is a reminder that value is often underestimated, overlooked, and misunderstood. It rewards patience. It rewards curiosity. And most importantly, it rewards those willing to look twice. In today's market, where verified high-grade examples and rare errors are commanding unprecedented attention, timing matters. Sellers who understand what they have, and present it correctly, are the ones capturing premium prices. So here's the closing thought I want you to carry with you. Somewhere out there, a coin is waiting to change someone's life. It could be in your possession right now. The difference between those who benefit and those who don't is simple. One group looks closer, asks better questions, and acts decisively. The other group spends history without realizing it. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can. It doesn't sparkle like gold. It doesn't shout for attention. And yet, this humble penny has been known to command prices as high as $476,000. Not because it's flashy, but because it's rare, misunderstood, and hiding in plain sight. What if I told you that one ordinary-looking coin from 1951, struck at the Denver Mint, could be the difference between just getting by and stepping into a completely different financial reality? And here's the unsettling question that should already be echoing in your mind: what if you already own it, and don't even know it? This story begins in post-war America, 1951. Factories were booming, families were rebuilding, and the U.S. Mint was working at full speed to keep up with demand. In Denver, millions of Lincoln wheat pennies rolled off the presses. Most were ordinary. Most were spent, lost, or worn into oblivion. But a tiny fraction, through a twist of human error and mechanical imperfection, were born different. These mistakes weren't caught. They slipped past inspectors. And decades later, they became legends. This is where excitement enters the room, because errors are not flaws in the coin world. Errors are multipliers. They transform a 1-cent piece into a 6-figure artifact almost overnight. Now let's pause for a quick reality check, because this is where many people mentally check out and miss their opportunity. You might be thinking, come on, it's just a penny. That reaction is exactly why these coins are still being found. That skepticism is the camouflage. The 1951 wheat penny is not famous because of its age alone. It's famous because of specific mint errors, subtle misalignments, double details, off-metal strikes, and rare die anomalies that most people never notice. And here's the almost humorous part: people will carefully inspect $20 bills for flaws, but toss pennies into jars without a second glance. Irony has never been so expensive. As the years passed, collectors began to notice something unusual. Certain 1951 pennies didn't look quite right. Letters appeared thicker. Dates showed doubling. The strike looked slightly off, yet unmistakably authentic. Once certified by professional grading services, these coins ignited bidding wars. Private collectors, investment funds, and high-end numismatists all wanted the same thing: a genuine, high-grade 1951 D wheat penny error. When supply is microscopic and demand is global, prices don't rise politely, they explode. That's how record-setting examples climbed toward the $476,000 mark, reshaping what people thought was possible from a single cent. Here's where the emotional shift happens, because this isn't just about coins, it's about timing and awareness. Many of the people who sold these coins didn't come from wealth. They inherited a collection. They cleaned out a family home. They finally decided to look through an old box instead of throwing it away. And suddenly, the conversation changed from, "What is this worth?" to, "How do I protect this asset?" Fear enters here for a reason, because every year, coins like this are accidentally spent, damaged, or lost forever. And once that happens, the opportunity doesn't come back. Let's inject a quick pattern break before we go further. Be honest, if someone offered you a penny for nearly $500,000, would you laugh, or would you check your pockets? Exactly. That moment of disbelief is natural, but it's also dangerous. Because while disbelief laughs, informed collectors act. And the market doesn't reward hesitation. The current demand for elite-era coins is not slowing down. Wealthy buyers are actively moving money out of volatile assets and into tangible, historical pieces they can hold in their hands. Coins like the 1951 D wheat penny era are no longer just collectibles, they're portable wealth. As we move toward the final act of this story, urgency becomes unavoidable. The generation that originally saved these coins is aging. Collections are changing hands. Estates are being liquidated. And every time one of these rare pennies is authenticated and locked into a private vault, the remaining supply becomes even smaller. That scarcity fuels higher prices, stronger competition, and faster sales. The question is no longer whether these coins are valuable, the market has already answered that. The real question is whether you will recognize value before it passes you by. So here we are at the end, and the message is clear, confident, and empowering. Wealth doesn't always announce itself with noise and glamour. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. It feels ordinary. And yet, it could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. I'm talking about the 1952 wheat penny with a rare mint mark error, a coin so sought after that elite collectors have paid as much as $476,000 to own one. And here's the question that should stop you cold for a second: what if that coin is already in your possession, and you just don't know it yet? Let's rewind to America in the early 1950s. The nation was rebuilding, families were growing, and everyday change passed through millions of hands without a second thought. The U.S. Mint was under pressure, producing massive quantities of coins to fuel a booming economy. And under pressure, mistakes happen. Tiny mistakes. Invisible to the untrained eye. But those mistakes, frozen in copper, would later become legends. The 1952 wheat penny struck at the San Francisco Mint is one of those legends, especially when it carries a rare mint mark error that never should have left the building. Now here's where excitement kicks in. Not all 1952 wheat pennies are rare. Most are worth only a few cents. But a select few, those with specific mint mark anomalies, striking irregularities, or die errors, have become unicorns in the coin world. These are not, maybe someday, coins. These are, collectors are hunting right now, coins. High net worth buyers, investment grade collectors, and auction houses compete aggressively for authenticated examples. And when one surfaces in exceptional condition, the market responds fast and fiercely. That's how values climb into the hundreds of thousands. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable, but important. How many coins have you already spent, given away, or ignored because they looked ordinary? That uneasy feeling you just had, that's fear. And it's a useful fear. Because the biggest regret in this market isn't buying the wrong coin. It's unknowingly letting the right one slip through your fingers. Coin history is filled with stories of people who discovered, far too late, that they once owned a small fortune disguised as pocket change. Don't let that story be yours, and just to reset your attention for a second, quick question. When was the last time something the size of a penny could change your lifestyle? Exactly. That's the power of rarity. That's why this market exists. The 1952 mint mark wheat penny era represents scarcity, history, and status all rolled into one. It's not just a coin. It's proof that knowledge creates wealth, and ignorance quietly destroys it. Here's what makes this coin so powerful in today's market. Serious collectors are aging, and many are consolidating into fewer, higher value pieces. That means demand is shifting upward, not fading away. Coins with verified errors, strong provenance, and top-tier grading are being absorbed into private collections at record prices. Once they disappear, they don't come back easily. Supply shrinks. Competition intensifies. Values rise. This is why reported market valuations for top-condition examples have reached the $476,000 range, and why experts believe the ceiling is far from fixed. There's also urgency here, and it's real. Every year, fewer untouched wheat pennies remain in circulation. Every year, more collections are locked away, inherited, or permanently removed from the open market. And every year, more everyday Americans discover that what they thought was just old change is actually a negotiable asset with life-changing potential. Timing matters. Awareness matters. Action matters. Imagine the freedom that comes with uncovering a single overlooked asset. Not a risky gamble. Not a lottery ticket. But a tangible piece of American history that the market already respects and rewards. Selling a rare coin like this isn't about luck, it's about recognition. It's about knowing what to look for, verifying what you have, and positioning it where serious money is ready and waiting. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is quietly sitting in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old cigar box. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And that is exactly why most people walk right past it every single day. But what if I told you that this 1-cent coin, minted in 1957, stamped with a small D beneath Lincoln's date, has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and reached documented market values as high as $375,000. Not for a gold bar. Not for a diamond. For a penny. And here's the uncomfortable question that should stop you cold: what if you already own it and don't even know it? This story begins in an era when America was booming. The year was 1957. The economy was growing, families were saving coins in jars, and the Denver Mint was working at full speed, striking millions of wheat pennies. Most of those coins are common. Worth a few cents, maybe $1 on a good day. But hidden among them are a handful of extraordinary mint errors, mistakes so rare, so desirable, and so aggressively hunted today that elite collectors are willing to pay life-changing money to own just one. And this is where fear quietly enters the room. Because every year, thousands of these coins are accidentally spent, lost, or sold for face value, simply because the owner never looked closely enough. Now let's pause for a second, because this is where most people say, "Come on, how can a penny be worth that much?" Fair question. After all, if pennies made people rich, wouldn't everyone be wealthy by now? And yet, the truth is far more unsettling. The value isn't in the penny itself. It's in the error, the timing, the condition, and the demand. Certain 1957 D wheat pennies were struck with dramatic die errors, doubling, misalignments, off-metal strikes, and rare planchet mistakes that were never supposed to leave the mint. When they did, they became instant anomalies. Today, those anomalies are no longer curiosities. They are assets. As the years passed, coin collecting transformed from a hobby into a serious wealth market. High-net-worth collectors, investment funds, and private buyers now compete aggressively for elite error coins. The 1957 D wheat penny error sits squarely in that category. When authenticated and preserved in high condition, examples have reached six-figure valuations, with top specimens pushing into the $375,000 range. And here's where excitement takes over, because this is not ancient history. This is happening now, in today's market, with buyers actively searching, bidding, and paying. Think about that for a moment. A single coin, smaller than your thumbnail, can outperform stocks, bonds, and even real estate when it hits the auction floor. And unlike the stock market, this coin doesn't crash because of headlines or politics. Its value is driven by scarcity and desire. There are only so many verified examples. And every year, that number effectively shrinks. That creates urgency. Because the longer you wait, the fewer opportunities remain, and the higher the competition becomes. Here's a quick reality check, and yes, this is the part that makes people nervous. If you inherited coins from a parent or grandparent, if you've kept wheat pennies in a jar since childhood, if you ever told yourself, "I'll sort through those someday," then you may already be sitting on something extraordinary. And here's the ironic part: people will spend hours searching for loose change to save a few cents on gas, yet ignore the possibility that real money is already in their home. Funny how that works, isn't it? Now we enter the heart of this story, the moment where ordinary owners become strategic sellers. Because owning a rare coin is only half the equation. Understanding when demand is peaking is where wealth is created. The current market for high-grade US era coins is stronger than ever. Baby boomers, private collectors, and international buyers are aggressively acquiring legacy assets, items they can hold, display, and pass on. The 1957 wheat penny era fits perfectly into this demand curve. It represents history, rarity, and status. And status matters in this market. Let's be clear about something important. This isn't about luck. It's about awareness. The people who profit from rare coins are not gamblers, they are informed. They know that one verified detail can separate a 1-cent coin from a 6-figure payday. They know that condition matters. Authentication matters. Timing matters. And right now, timing is on the seller's side. Ask yourself this, and be honest: how would your life change if you discovered that one overlooked coin could pay off debt, fund retirement, upgrade your lifestyle, or finally give you financial breathing room? That thought alone is enough to make people uneasy. Because missed opportunities hurt far more than effort ever does. And the fear of loss is powerful. No one wants to be the person who unknowingly spent a $375,000 penny at a vending machine. Imagine explaining that story at Thanksgiving dinner. This is why demand remains relentless. Collectors are not slowing down. Auction houses are not lowering expectations. And verified 1957 wheat penny errors are not becoming more common. The market rewards those who act with confidence and clarity. Those who recognize value before the crowd. Those who take the time to look twice. And here's the final connection, the thread that ties this entire story together. Wealth is rarely about what you earn. It's about what you recognize. The 1957 wheat penny error is not just a coin. It's a reminder that extraordinary value often hides in plain sight. That history can sit quietly in your hands. And that sometimes, the smallest objects carry the biggest opportunities. So the real question isn't whether these coins are worth big money.